Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm CJ Vogel, going solo today, so bear with me for a little bit. We're going to be diving into some position changes in addition to the running back room, as well as some battles still going on in fall camp right now. We're only 9 days away from the beginning of the 2024 college football season. That should get you excited regardless. I know that there's a lot going on in the world of college football. We got week 0 coming up right now. Texas also hit us with a bit of some late news last night with the addition, or the announcement rather, of Velton Gardner, former running back of SMU, joining the Texas roster for this upcoming season as a grad transfer. Of course, Texas has been pelted by season-ending injuries at the running back position, first by C.J. Baxter, then by Christian Clark. Started moving around a couple pieces in the back end into that running back room to get some more guys familiar with the position, maybe use them in some niche qualities, some niche roles later on in the 2024 season. Regardless, Texas has gone out and added Velton Gardner, a grad transfer from SMU by way of Kansas, out of Dallas Skyline. Previously had been committed to Kansas State and then Texas Tech, and then reopened whenever Cliff Kingsbury was fired and they hired Matt Wells. That's kind of what helped prop the door open for him to end up at Kansas. Quick couple of answers to questions. Yes, he will be eligible immediately to get on the field for the Texas Longhorns. That was one that I saw floating around a lot. Not the biggest back, about 5'9", 180, 175 pounds, more of a slimmer frame, a guy that you would see kind of in a slashing role outside zone schemes. He has had success running between the tackles in the past before as well. He's got over 220 career carries in 5 years played. It wasn't necessarily a guy that you would see on the field a whole lot at either of his previous stops, but he does give you another body with experience and a guy who could be, at the very end of the day, an RB4 if absolutely need be. And one thing that I think is very important with the addition of a Gardner is, hey, he's played a lot of football in his career. And at the end of the day, he keeps a guy like Jarrett Gibson off the field in those kind of garbage time moments, right? Let Velton Gardner, let Colin Page kind of be the guys that mop up, the final 5 to 10 minutes of games in which Texas is up big, right? I'm looking at Colorado State, ULM, Vanderbilt. Those are all games in which you would like to preserve the legs and the carries for those big-time running backs that you're going to need in important games like Georgia, Michigan, A&M, and Oklahoma, right? So I like this ad. We heard from Steve Sarkisian on Monday saying that, hey, we're not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to adding potential bodies to this running back room. He mentioned the grad transfer route. They were monitoring the portal at the time, and according to Steve Sarkisian, this wasn't a take of Velton Gardner just to take a body at the running back spot. Again, he said it in his own words. We're not going to go out there and add a body just to add a body. We're going to make sure that they fit our culture, fit our scheme, and they could certainly provide something for us of value on the field. And that's what you get right now with Velton Gardner. Of course, we've seen plenty of tapes, plenty of highlights of him at Kansas and at SMU, breaking away for 40 or 50-yard touchdowns, whether that be outside, whether that be inside. He's got enough speed to be a difference maker if given the opportunity. The question is, how large of a role will he actually warrant this fall? Of course, Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, and Jarrett Gibson are going to be and remain your 1, 2, 3 punch for the Longhorns this upcoming season. Regardless, another body, another veteran in the room right now for Tashard choice. I like the addition. Keep that running back room replenished. As we know, things can change very quickly in that room. But moving on to another potential running back in the 2024 fall camp so far, Ryan Niblet. What's going on with him? Well, as of Wednesday afternoon, I know I'm filming this Thursday morning. As of Wednesday afternoon, I had a conversation with somebody connected to the program, kind of trying to figure out what's going on with Ryan Niblet. Is he still getting reps at running back? Is he strictly a wide receiver? I know that we reported a week ago he was one of 2 guys that the Longhorns had moved over to running back as a result of Christian Clark going down for the season as well. The answer is yes, he's still getting reps at running back, and yes, he is still getting reps at wide receiver. What's the split in those? I'm not entirely sure, but he's not going to be someone that just abandons one or the other for the other position, obviously. He had been mentioned by Sarkisian on Monday as a wide receiver that's really started to come along, right? He expanded that circle of trust from 6 to 7 with the inclusion of Niblet during the Monday media availability press conference, whatever you want to call it, earlier this week. That was of interesting note. And of course, Niblet has still been getting reps at the running back position. He's a guy that played quarterback at high school, as did Velton Gardner, I should add, at Skyline. But Ryan Niblet, still a guy that's very familiar with the wide receiver position, becoming more accustomed with the running back spot, and is still comfortable taking snaps out of the backfield. Of course, that speed's not going to go away anytime soon. And two, he also provides quite a threat for the Longhorns out of the backfield in the passing game, as well, as we know with his wide receiving background as well. So certainly someone to keep an eye on. I know that there's a question about Juan Davis. What kind of role is he looking at right now? I've heard that it's kind of quieted down in the terms of what kind of running back strictly role he could provide for the Longhorns this year. I know that we've heard a lot about him, and I mean as much as anybody, potentially dating back to the spring, as someone to keep an eye on and watch out for this upcoming fall. That's something I'm going to continue to monitor. Maybe it's just a weekly you need a big body for a goal line situation package that spurts up later on in the year. He did offer his services to the Texas football staff, saying, hey, if y'all need a big back, y'all need a running back, I'm here. That's something I have on good authority, and I know that he is as much a team player as you will find on this roster right now. Of course, waiting his turn. He's been a guy that's starting to crack, that first and second team rotation at the tight end position when Texas goes to 12 personnel, as well as just finding ways onto the field in other variety, special teams included. But Juan Davis, not necessarily done at the running back spot. Potentially, you still see him as a short yardage back. That conversation I had Wednesday afternoon led me to believe that there's still hope for that short distance, short yardage running back situation with Juan Davis. It just hasn't kind of come to light right now. So still waiting there. More than not, he is a tight end, and I think he will remain at the tight end spot for the foreseeable future. Of course, we'll see what else changes later on. And I wanted to speak a little bit about the cornerback situation, because now we're getting into the battles, right? The nitty-gritty of the Texas roster. We're going to some rooms that have some more capable bodies, maybe have some more experience, some guys that are fighting for, that first team position rather than where am I going to be position room-wise. And, of course, that is cornerback. Who's going to be opposite Amani Muhammad? It's going to be either Gavin Holmes or it's going to be Jahdae Barron. And I know that we've heard this conversation throughout the entire offseason, right? Jahdae Barron wants to play outside cornerback. You can still use him as a nickel. He's one of the more impactful guys that you'll see on this Texas roster when he is on the field, of course, because he's got such a high football IQ, and he was second in the team in snaps a year ago. Worth mentioning that for a couple things. One, I don't know who's going to be that cornerback number 2 to begin the year. I've heard great things, and I mean great things, about Gavin Holmes so far through 2 scrimmages in the fall. Manny Muhammad, we talked to him Tuesday afternoon, said that he's had tremendous leaps from the spring into the fall. He's playing more confident, and he's got that dog mentality that you like. We've also heard on Texas Football's Learn that NFL scouts are starting to take notice of Gavin Holmes after kind of circling through, Texas football practices earlier this fall. So he's a name to keep an eye on as well. But what does that mean for Jahdae Barron? Because, again, you don't move him off the field entirely. He's too impactful, as I mentioned. There were a number of times a year ago where you could certainly feel his impact immediately, right? That interception against Alabama very early to kind of set the tone defensively there, and also the 4th down stop against Houston, in which he was in the right position to create a kind of an awkward throw behind the wide receiver. Incomplete. Texas goes on to win the game. He also had a 4th down stop against Rice, in which early in that game, it was a pivotal moment there. Regardless, we know how valuable he is. I still believe right now, and I've heard this throughout the fall camp, he's going to split time between the nickel and the cornerback, right? I don't know where he'll see more time at the moment. Of course, he's liking to play the outside spot. He forced a fumble on Christian Clark in one of the scrimmages earlier this offseason on the 1-yard line. So you can see where that impact continues to be, regardless if he's at cornerback or at nickel. Right now, I've heard that race is much tighter than just giving the reins to Jahdae out of, you've been here before, you've played on this defense. We're going to kind of pencil you in as that guy. Gavin Holmes has made that much tighter. So right now, still up in the air with Jahdae. I still think he'll see time with Jalen Gilbo at the nickel spot, and, of course, bumping out wide to give perhaps Gavin Holmes a breather out wide as well. So Warren Roberson also, I've heard, has had a really impressive back end of the fall camp. He had an interception, the lone turnover in that second scrimmage. So worth mentioning all three of those. Right now, it's Manny Muhammad on one side, and right now, if I had to put money on who that other guy will be, it's going to be Gavin Holmes to start the year. Maybe it's matchup based, maybe it's schematic of what that defense wants to do that week against a certain opponent. We'll see. Of course, only 9 days away from Colorado State, who, as we know, likes to throw the ball deep and throw the ball often with Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, 16th most passing yards in all of the country a year ago. So those cornerbacks are going to be tested. Of course, Torrey Horton, one of the best wide receivers Texas will play the entire season as well. Moving to the opposite side of the ball, and I mentioned that circle of trust expanding from 6 to 7. Who's going to be the 3 or who's going to be the 2 that Texas trots out the most right now? I have 4 guys in mind, and for a variety of different reasons, I expect this to be more so than not kind of those guys that you see Texas trotting out in vital situations, especially early in the year as they work to get the right personnel groupings together, the right kind of pieces in certain situations figured out. But Ryan Wingo's not going to be off the field. He's a guy, maybe they slow play him a little bit, as we've seen them do with Derek Williams, Manny Muhammad, Anthony Hill in years past. Maybe they just have those specific packages for him. Of course, we've heard from Sarkisian earlier this fall that he's maybe not a guy that's as versatile positionally so far as we've seen the rest of this room. Of course, these guys, having been in college before or having been in this scheme before, understand the terminology, some of the nuances of being a college wide receiver, perhaps a little bit more at the moment than what you expect from a Ryan Wingo, who's only been on campus for about 7 months, 8 months now. So he's more kind of relegated to that outside role. Regardless, you're going to see him on the field. Silas Bolden, we've heard tremendous things about him. On Wednesday during the team period, he took a ball 70, 75 yards to the house on a slant or a post anyway. He was coming over the middle, took the ball and just housed it. And again, we've heard it from Manny Muhammad earlier this week, and I hate going back to what he was saying, but he said it so well, is if you miss, you're in trouble because he's got jets. And he's going to make you pay for it. He did just that Wednesday afternoon in practice. He'll be on the field. Isaiah Bond, we know what he can do with his speed and his vertical ability. He's a guy that I think you're going to hear a lot more of in practice reports. Or I guess you're going to hear more about him in game reports than you will in practice reports. I think that's kind of one of those things where when the lights turn on, he comes to play perhaps a little bit more. And then Matthew Golden. Right now, he had a great second scrimmage, kind of made up for what might have been a first scrimmage that wasn't up to par for his standards. But also that rapport with Quinn Ewers dating back to the spring has lingered, and it's been there. So who kind of jumps into the fold next? We've heard Ryan Niblet's name. We obviously know Jonte Cook's a guy that has been competing and chomping at the bit to be a starter this year as well. And, of course, DeAndre Moore, who has been doing all the dirty work at the wide receiver spot, kind of picking off where Jordan Whittington left off for the Longhorns a year ago. All these guys are going to see the field. The question is, when Texas needs to go score before a half, when Texas needs to score to come back and win a football game, who are your wide receivers on the field right now? I think you're going to see a combination of 3 of the 4 I mentioned at the very beginning of that segment. So that's kind of the end-all be-all at the wide receivers. Of course, we'll see who Quinn ends up targeting more when these guys are on the field. I still think by the end of the year, you're going to see a combination of Silas Bolden, Ryan Wingo, and one of Isaiah Bond or Matthew Golden, depending on situations and what that team might, kind of throw at them. So we'll see, of course. And then finally, punter. And I know that you're sitting here thinking, punter, why are you closing out with the punter? Well, it's an important spot. And hopefully these punters aren't used a whole lot this year. Of course, veteran quarterback, third year, offensive line with everybody returning basically. Still, Michael Kern, Ian Ratliff, these are the 2 guys that are duking it out. The last media availability that we were able to sit in and watch, we saw some of the punters in action. And I'd have to give it to Ratliff. I thought that he had the more consistent leg that day. Not to say that it's the better leg or the leg that Texas and Jeff Banks will end up trotting out there, but I thought that he was more consistent in his reps that afternoon. Ball just had a little bit more flight, a little bit more hang time, something that Texas, as we know, it has preached and has a lot of value in when it comes to the punting game. Who are going to be some of the nickels? Well, Warren Roberson is one of them. And previously in the spring, we heard that it was going to be a Gavin Holmes or a Trey Wisner now that CJ Baxter is out of the picture in the running back room. I don't know, and I don't expect right now that we see Trey Wisner in an expanded full-time gunner role as a result of that. And that's something that had been echoed by Steve Sarkisian, to be a little bit more mindful of the bodies in each room before they go out there and they kind of utilize those guys and their talents on special teams. Of course, Texas recruited very well. Perhaps an Xavier Phil-Samir or Jordan Johnson-Rubel could be someone that Texas utilizes as an outside gunner on punt team this year. Regardless, I know that Warren Roberson is likely to be one of those guys. So the punting spot's still up in the air. I have heard that both guys have had good days in camps. Right now, I'm not sure if there's true separation from one or the other to kind of warrant that number one punting spot at the moment. Of course, that's why Jeff Banks gets paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I do think at the end of the day, Texas is confident in their room, and that's why you didn't see them go out and add a grad transfer like we saw with a Velton Gardner at the running back spot. But anyways, one final nugget on the offensive line. I do think you see a full four-man rotation at both spots, right? Hayden Connor, Hayden Connor, DJ Campbell, Cole Hudson, and of course, Nato Umeozulu at those guard spots. You're going to see them cycle through. Again, if you go back to the Alabama game a year ago, it was Cole Hudson that had more snaps than DJ Campbell. Obviously, injury kind of derailed what was expected to be a sophomore campaign for Cole Hudson, but you saw them play almost a 50-50 share until Cole's final series against Alabama, in which Texas ran off 7 minutes of the clock, kind of took him over that 50-50 threshold there. So it's worth mentioning that you're going to see a lot of NATO, you're going to see a lot of Cole, you're going to see a lot of DJ, and a lot of Hayden Connor as well early in the season. And I expect that to linger all the way into Mississippi State when SEC play comes rolling around. Just to finish it off with that. So a little food for thought on that one. Y'all enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Of course, come follow us on ontexasfootball.com. We'll have all the nuggets, all recruiting updates. Should be a busy recruiting weekend. I'll leave it with that. But for On Texas Football, I'm CJ Vogel. Y'all have a great Thursday afternoon, and hook 'em.